two small businesses in Scranton, Pennsylvania. They both share the same space, and it's bizarre because one got hit with demand and the other had its demand entirely crushed. So one business is called Maker Stock, and our customers are universities. We sell materials like acrylic and plywood to university maker labs, engineering schools and architecture schools. And the other business is Zooter Scooters, and we sell kick scooters to adults in urban environments. The Maker Stock business basically went away. Our customers literally closed their doors. And the Zooter business, everyone said, oh my God, I don't want to be on a subway, and went looking for alternative transportation. So in the same building, we've seen two businesses, one get boosted and one get crushed. I've had to think about two critical questions. One is, do I actually add staff to track demand? And I basically decided no. And my guys have also decided they would much rather work overtime and really scramble to avoid having to have any layoffs in the future. So that's one issue. The other, though, is the supply chain issue. So most of our components come from China, and we've come to really worry quite a bit about how fragile that supply chain is. And I've been trying to think through, to what extent should I plan around a 100-year storm? You know, I hope this is a 100-year storm. Should I really think about reconfiguring my supply chain in the future to avoid potential disruption? So that's on the boom side. On the bust side, it's also a tough question, because at Maker Stock, I suppose we have three scenarios. One is we fold the tent and say we won't weather this, and it's, you know, we shouldn't throw good money after bad. The other scenario is to say, no, you know, this might last 6 to 12 months. Now is the time to get lean and strong and prepare for the future. And a third scenario is a pivot, which is to say, what assets and capabilities do we have, and is there something else we can do to survive the weather? It really is very situational. There are some businesses that are uniquely positioned to do something, to be quite responsive to the crisis. So for instance, actually the Maker Stock business, it turns out we had a lot of this mylar film, this clear mylar film that's used in face shields. We didn't have it for face shields, we have it for other purposes. We were able to very quickly pivot to supplying some of the people making PPE, and that turned out to be a pretty good thing. But I think for some businesses, I mean, if you're in hospitality, I don't know that there's a pivot here that is going to be realistic. And I think often in entrepreneurship, I've weathered a few downturns and a few recessions, and one lesson I've learned is you cut deep and you cut hard, deeper than you think you need to cut when you face a crisis like this. And I think that's probably the bigger pitfall I see, is people who are basically burning cash somewhat overly optimistically at this point. I try to be a realist with entrepreneurs. Like this is your base rate of success. But I have and I'm usually a little bit pessimistic relative to what they believe their base rate of success is. But I also teach a model, I call it the VDE model, VIDE, which says that value, V, in entrepreneurship is a function of three buckets of factors. I, which is the idea itself, you could think of that as the pain point. D, what you do with the idea, your skills and capabilities. And then that E is the exogenous factors, which I think of as the weather, factors outside your control. And my students have historically rolled their eyes at the E. They're like, oh yeah, come on, what could that possibly be? And they're not rolling their eyes anymore. They're realizing, wow, some little virus in a bat 8,000 miles away can crush my business, and it has nothing to do with me. I don't think there's much evidence of that. Maybe a little bit to the extent that we're more globally interconnected, so maybe they diffuse faster. But I really don't think there's evidence that we should expect pandemics of this scale to recur at higher frequency.
Right.
But I do think there's some lessons to be extracted. And people, I think that one of the problems is these business cycles and the recessions, the disruptions to the system don't occur frequently enough that very many of us get to experience 3 or 4 of them in our careers. And so we need to find a better way to communicate to young people that these things do happen and that there's tremendous value to being lean and flexible in the event that some disruption occurs. It may not be on the scale of COVID, but there's always something. And so I think tempering optimism with a sense of there is going to be something, it's going to be outside your control, and being resilient and lean to navigate it is an important quality in entrepreneurs. We have been seeing a lot of creative problem solvers jumping to help, and that certainly is an entrepreneurial impulse. And some of those efforts will result in value creation and business creation. I also think it's a fantastic opportunity for some people to have the excuse really to pursue their passions or to develop the toolkit they need to be entrepreneurs. I think there's this collective sense that we as a people globally, we got serious about something, we put our minds to following certain norms and conventions, and we actually changed the outcome, right? So that's a super positive thing. I also think there's been renewed focus on things that matter in life. Really focus on what are your skills, and those skills better be tied to recognizing problems and solving those problems. And those are the skills that make you most useful in a crisis, and that I think make you most useful in general in life. And so we were in a period of a lot of irrational exuberance, a lot of capital available, a lot of people could get by on swagger. And I think those times are gone, and I think that's in general healthy. So that's the advice I'd give.